At first, the world seemed slower. The mornings arrived with the same light, on the same roads, between the same low houses. Then, in some neighborhoods, it began to feel a new noise. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the saddle. It was an iron breath. The chimney stood above the roofs as trees without leaves. The air knew of coal and hot oil. Inside the workshops, the floor trembled under the frames. Hands were moving fast. The hours were no longer in the sun. They belonged to the car. And on those days, no one could still imagine how far that first noise would come. For many families, that car meant something simple. Bread. The wage was little, but it came. And when the land was no longer enough, the factory looked like an open door. The children walked down to the gates. Men tightened the hat between their fingers. Women wore short breath and already tired hands. From the high windows, a dense, gray, almost heavy smoke to see. Inside, the heat was dry. The buzz of the machines covered the thoughts. We talked little. He looked at the clock when there was. Yet, in the midst of that fatigue, life changed form. Cities filled. And with them, a new question grew, still without answer. The streets that once knew all the steps began to fill with strangers. They came from the countryside. They were looking for work. They were looking for a room. They were looking for a future that had a roof. The alleys were narrower, more humid, more noisy. The windows were close. The cloths dried between wall and wall. The water was taken from common pumps. The courtyards smelled of wet coal, soup, and mud. But every week the number of cradles increased. The children were more numerous. Mothers had more mouths to feed. The world, without almost realizing it, was filling itself with people. When the sun came down, the city didn't stop. The windows were on. The machines kept beating. The steps ran on the stairs. In the suburbs, the darkness was never really dark. An orange glow trembled over the roofs. The sky seemed to reflect the fire of furnaces. Families were eating fast. Then someone gave way to sleep with his shoes still standing. The church bells lost strength against the strawberries of the workshops. And in the meantime, the cities became huge organisms. In those new ways, life ran faster than memory. But progress, to be believed, needed to seem inevitable. The same age that consumed men and women gave birth to more children than in the past. It wasn't a miracle. It was a sum of small changes. More food came to the cities. The epidemics, a little at a time, found less ground. Families learned to defend themselves better from hunger and cold. Every newborn was fragile. Every survival seemed a silent conquest. Mothers watched their children sleep, with fear still close to the pillow. Yet those beds were filled. The cradles became more numerous than the memories. The planet, slowly, populated with new voices, and no one knew yet what price he would ask for all that growth. As cities grew, the laboratories began to speak a new language. Glass bottle. Violence. Notes written quickly. Odor of reagents, of wet paper, of oil lamps. Science didn't promise magic, promised proof. The body was better understood. The germs were better understood. It was beginning to see what was previously invisible. And every discovery opened a door that seemed closed for centuries. Fever, pain, wound. Everything became less mysterious. That's why, more human. Hospitals and ambulance men changed the face of the cities. The white sheets brought a bitter smell of soap and disinfectant. The lanes were cold, but more ordered. The hands of doctors washed more often. The tools became more accurate. The wounds sometimes stopped being a judgment. Mothers no longer looked at sick children with the same impotence as before. Vaccines, cures, prevention. New words. Words saving days, months, years of life. People knew it without great talk. Just seeing a room less full of empty beds. Just listen to the breath of those who remained. Then came the hidden price. Coal warmed the houses, moved trains, feeding the factories. It seemed like a gentle force, only because it gave work. But under the ground, the darkness was dug without respite. Mines swallowed men covered in dust. Black cuts remained on the hands. In the lungs, the wrong air entered. And above, in the skies of the cities, smoke increased day after day. No one saw the whole design yet. You only saw the immediate advantage. And the advantage, then, seemed stronger than prudence. The world noticed. Trains crossed countryside and cities with a metallic, continuous sound. Steamships cut the seas faster than the wind. The wires of the telegraph carried distant words in a few moments. A news could arrive before a letter. A commodity could cross a continent. A person could move where he would never come before. The station smelled of iron, soot, and rain. The doors were filled with crates, ropes, cries, whistles. Every distance seemed shorter. Every border more fragile. And in that speed, Earth began to look smaller than it really was. To feed cities so large, they needed larger fields. To build houses, it served wood. To warm up, it still needed wood. So the hills changed their faces. The woods fell apart. The trunks fell one after another with a deaf sound. The smell of resin left the place to the dust of the naked earth. Where he first filtered green, now a harder sun came in. The rivers brought more mud. Birds had fewer shelters. Men saw cuts in the landscape, but they called them development. And in the meantime, the silence of the forest went away. No clamor, without immediate return. Water also began to change. The canals behind the factories took a peat color. The foam was entangled along the banks. The smells went up before the wind came. Women lowered their eyes when they passed by the banks. Children soon learned not to touch certain wells. Fish and frogs disappeared from the dirtiest areas. The water, which once seemed only water, became a problem. Every discharge told a little invisible violence. Yet the work continued. The wheels were spinning. The chimneys burned. Time didn't slow down to wait for the river. The air of industrial cities became part of everyday life. He was struggling in the neighborhoods closest to the factories. The dust entered the windows. The soot lay on the windows. The cloths stretched out were gray. The faces of the children were blacked out walking. No one had simple words to describe that change. There was only a habit. And habit, sometimes, is the way you endure what should not last. But the body remembered cough, burn, tiredness. The city was breathing badly, and together with her, her inhabitants were breathing badly. The 20th century came with an almost stubborn trust: electricity, cars, equipment, new materials, hottest houses, faster roads, longer life. Every decade seemed to promise something better. Common people learned to trust the technique. When one thing broke, it often replaced another. When the job changed, he was hoping for another place. When the world became more complex, a machine could simplify it. And almost always the car came before the question. In many houses, the greatest miracle did not make noise. He was a child who passed the fever. She was a mother leaving the hospital. He was an old man who lived years more than his parents. The medicine became more precise. Vaccinations protected more people. Hygiene improved. The clean water came where only the disease came first. For millions of families, this meant more birthdays, more winters overcome, more faces sitting at the table, and then progress seemed to have a clear face. The life saved. But also this gift to exist consumed energy, materials, transport, industries, and the account was hidden on the edge of the picture. After the war and during the Reconstruction, buying became a daily gesture. Refrigerators, cars, clothes, household items. The windows were shining. Advertising was about convenience, speed, well-being. Families used to replace, not only repair. Every house wanted more things. Every city wanted more light. Every country wanted to grow again. The prosperity had the sound of the engines and the smell of the new. But more objects meant more factories. More factories meant more extraction. And more extraction meant even more pressure on Earth. The pace of modern life became a difficult race to slow down. For a long time, almost no one looked at the sky as an archive. Yet, above the cities, something changed. Fossil fuels released invisible gases. They didn't see each other. They weren't touching. But they stayed there. They kept heat, slowly altered the balance of the planet. Starting after start, season after season, the weather stopped being as reliable as a watch. The winters were shortened in some places. Summers became harder. The rains changed shape and time. And the world, accustomed to thinking in human decades, was entering a much longer story. The loss of forests, climate change, altered rivers, and transformed fields left signs even far from human eyes. Some species disappeared from the countryside. Others moved. Some had nowhere to go. Insects changed their cycles. Birds found confused seasons. The fishes suffered waters other than the ones before. Biodiversity did not disappear altogether. He walked out, one wire at a time, one name at a time, a habitat at a time. And when one realized the void, often the vacuum had already taken the place of the presence. At some point, the tools began to tell the truth clearly. Scientists measured temperatures, glaciers, seas, forests. The data had no emotion, but those who read them felt the weight of what was emerging. The maps of the planet showed too large wounds to be ignored. Research became more urgent. Words were serious. Awareness came out of laboratories and entered schools, newspapers, homes. It was no longer enough to know that the world was changing. It was necessary to understand why, and above all, it was necessary to wonder whether change could still be slowed down. For the first time, the question came in time. The big turn didn't come like a thunder. He came as a difficult thought to accept. People were not just spectators of the planet. They were part of it. Houses, roads, factories, fields, hospitals, ports. Everything was interwoven with the earth, and everything left a trace. Some looked at the damage and felt shame. Others felt afraid. Others still felt responsibility. It was no longer a question of choosing between man and nature. It was about understanding that there was no human life outside the balance of the world that sustains it. That awareness was hard, but it was also the beginning of something. In this documentary, the following works and research institutions have been used as main historical sources. Eric Hobsbawm, The Triumph of the Bourgeoisie, 1848 to 1875. Eric Hobsbawm, The Age of Capital, 1848 to 1875. Joel Mokyr, The Lever of Riches, Technological Creativity and Economic Progress. Robert C. Allen, The British Industrial Revolution and Global Perspective. Kenneth Pomeranz, The Great Divergence. China, Europe, and the Making of the Modern World Economy. David S. Landis, The Wealth and Poverty of Nations. Stephen Johnson, The Ghost Map. John E. McNeil, Something New Under the Sun, An Environmental History of the 20th Century World. Naomi Oreskes, The Rejection of Continental Drift, Theory and Method in American Earth Science. Naomi Oreskes and Eric M. Conway, Merchants of Doubt. Václav Smil, Energy and Civilization, A History. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. World Health Organization, Our World in Data.